this. Health and Environmental Alternatives, starring internationally acclaimed investigative reporter, compelled to help change people's lives. Two-time winner Crystal Awards, the man who tells it like it is, Basil Gold.
It should not surprise you to know that America leads the world in diseases. In the land of the free and brave, are we truly free to make healthy choices in medicines? No, we're not. We are controlled by the AMA, the FDA, and the drug cartels. In fact, folks, if I were to prescribe a substance, a food substance, a natural substance, that is not a prescription, and it turns your cancer all the way around to perfection, I would go to jail for quackery. Yet it has been written, let food be your medicine, and let medicine be your food. Hippocrates. He said, all diseases on earth can be cured with substances on earth. And today I'm going to be talking about two superfoods that we know categorically are not only changing people's disease state, but reversing it totally. I would like to tell you a little story about a young lady, Erica, 16 years old recently, who went to a hospital with a headache. They found a tumor that size in her head. They cut her open, put a balloon around the tumor so that they could use the common treatment, chemotherapy. Did it work? No, it did not work. So they cut her brain open a week later and took out the balloon, stitched her up. She got edema on the brain. The tumor was growing. The edema was getting bigger. Her brain was swelling, and she was given 5 days to live. I got a hold of Walter Wainwright, an American pioneer in cancer research and soybeans, fermented soys. And by introducing these substances to Erica after she was given up for dead, she came out of the coma in 5 days' time, and 2 days later she was talking, and she just got better and better on a substance other than chemotherapy. So I would like to welcome today Walter Wainwright's coming into the studio, as well as Kim Bright-Cassano. We're going to talk about two superfoods coming right up. We're back with Walter Wainwright, the man who showed me how I could take tumors and reduce them down to nothing without using chemotherapy. Walter, thank you so much for coming into Las Vegas today and bringing us this information that Americans really need to know. And folks, this is going to blow you away because you did not know this. And I know that the National Cancer Institute got involved as well. So welcome.
It's good to be with you today, Basil. To enhance on what you were mentioning earlier on superfoods, what they really do is contain energy. Our whole body is an energy system. Each cell has its own individual energy, and what illness is about is when we deplete that energy. Live, healthy foods restore the energy at a cellular level and restore the normal health of those cells.
So people have been under the belief all the time that diseases are handed down in the genes. Folks, diseases are not handed down in the genes. It's the habits and lifestyles that are handed down in the genes. We are dying of malnutrition.
We see cases all the time where women particularly think that cancer is hereditary because the grandmother had it,
right.
They had it, the daughter. It's because they eat the same foods.
Right, grandmother made pancakes for breakfast, some mom did, the kids, whatever.
Right, they eat exactly the same thing, whereas we find in other countries, they do things differently. The food is live, and let me tell a story. About a year and a half ago, I was at a seminar. The head of the National Cancer Institute was talking. He told our workers, and he said there were 19 workers in the government office. He said, tomorrow we're going to check the anti-cancer compounds in broccoli. So he instructed everyone to bring in a head of broccoli. All looked good. They tested it, and they found that the best head had 300 times higher level of anti-cancer compounds in it than the worst one.
Right, those were the Indo-3 carbanols that they have in broccoli.
And the sulforaphanes. And what they did, they then thought this was because the age of the broccoli on the shelf at the store. So they bought the seeds, grew the broccoli, and cut it. On the third day, they tested it. The anti-cancer compound level was 9,000 times higher in that broccoli than the best head that they received at the grocery store.
Which brings us to the point today between foods and superfoods. They have to be grown in pristine. We're going to get into all that. Tell us about some of the case studies that have been done on fermented soy, where we've actually regressed cancer completely. This is revolutionary, folks.
Well, it starts first with a lot of studies that originated with a nutritionist in China who was working with people in the hospital, giving them a fermented soy beverage as hospital nutrition. But what they found, it didn't make any difference what anybody had. You got better when you ate soybeans as compared to anything else. In the hospital that handled lung patients, emphysema, silicosis, asbestos, lung cancer, they saw the tumor shrink and regress. And so then they did work to find out what compounds were there in the soy that were responsible. And it became quite complex. There are over 10,000 varieties of soybeans. The phytochemical content varies 50% depending on the minerals in the soil where it's grown, varies an additional 50% depending on the age of the beans when they're picked for processing.
Okay, and I read about all these studies, and that's why I got hold of you, and that's what I thought when little Erica was dying. They gave her, 1 day to live. They told the parents she can have a room in the hospital because she's not going to live through it. Parents chose to take her home, and of course I got hold of you overnight, and you got that fermented soy. Tell me how to get that. Now, look at this, folks. The Wellbeing Journal, Healing Lung Cancer with Soy Nutrient. That's one heading. Soy nutrient gives new hope to cancer patients. This kind of information is just not put out there enough. It should be headline news on ABC, NBC, and PBS. Healing lung cancer with soy nutrient. I mean, the headlines go on and on. Nitrogenated soybean phytochemicals, and that's where the NCI, the National Cancer Institute, did their test. Insulin's not the answer. It goes on and on that fermented soy reverses diseases.
One of the remarkable cases that was written up and published is the story of a Mr. Sherman Sanders. He is the only known survivor of primary liver cancer spread through intestines, lymph system, and gallbladder. That's known as cholangiocarcinoma. There are no known survivors. And he went into the hospital, they cut him open, took a look, sewed him up, said too far gone, nothing they could do, chemotherapy typically doesn't work. They tried it, sent him home as a terminal case. He drank the fermented soy beverage, and after a bottle a day for 10 days, they did a CAT scan, they measured tumor shrinkage. He drank 70 more bottles and was cancer-free and has been for over 7 years. That case was certified, documented, and accepted by the National Cancer Institute as sole therapy cure for liver cancer.
So then the NCI did a study, right? They spent, what, $20 million or something on studying fermented soy?
Well, they spent $20 million looking at anti-cancer compounds in fruits and vegetables and found 5 superstars, all in soybeans.
All in soy.
All in soybeans.
Fermented soy. They kind of directed their studies.
Then they came back, spent an additional $2.9 million on those individual compounds and found with protease inhibitors, they killed 90% of all cancers. They were superstars at shutting off the blood vessels that allow tumors to grow. Therefore, they shrink and die because they have no food supply, restored non-normal cells to normal cells. So those were isoflavins, protease inhibitors, saponins, phytosterols, and phytic acid compounds.
Yet, nobody is allowed to go out there and put it out on the evening news, start drinking fermented soy, and of course you have to tell us the difference between fermented soy and the soy that is out there, because so much of it is junk, GMO, and so fermented soy is done very pristine. And people just don't realize this information. You can turn your diseases around using substances of this earth. So Walter, tell me about fermented soy specifically, the growth pattern, how they developed fermented soy.
The fermented soy beverage that is the most effective has been well researched. It was developed in China as hospital nutrition. There's studies on liver function, liver support, knocking out carcinogens in liver, lung emphysema, silicosis, asbestosis.
Slow down, those words are so big.
Anti-aging studies, studies with 318 cancer patients, 276 with chemotherapy.